Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. So I want you to imagine trying to cook a complex, like a five-course meal.
Okay, that sounds stressful already.
Right. But here is the catch. You only have one tiny cutting board to work with.
Oh, man. So you're just constantly shuffling things around.
Exactly. You're chopping onions, scraping them into a little bowl, washing the board, chopping tomatoes, moving those. You end up spending way more time just managing your ingredients than you do actually cooking the meal.
Yeah. The friction there is just massive.
It really is.
Mhm.
And that friction is exactly what working on a single computer screen feels like when you have, a dozen tabs and 3 different applications open.
It's just a constant cycle of minimizing and maximizing.
Exactly. So today, our mission is to explore a really comprehensive guide. This is written by Felix Römer from smartkeys.org, and it makes a very compelling case for why adding a second monitor is, well, it's no longer just a luxury.
Right. It's a necessity.
Yeah, a strategic necessity for modern professionals. We are going to unpack how treating your digital real estate with the exact same respect that you give your physical desk can fundamentally change your day-to-day efficiency.
You know, it's funny because we spend vast amounts of time optimizing our physical environments, right?
Oh yeah, like buying the fancy ergonomic chairs.
Exactly. The chairs, dialing in the ambient lighting, getting the perfect keyboard. But we routinely neglect the actual canvas where the work is happening.
The screen itself.
Yeah. What's fascinating here is how Romer's guide frames the digital workspace not just as an output display, but as an engineered environment that's designed specifically to reduce cognitive friction.
Which is huge right now.
Right, because in an era of intense information overload, constantly shuffling those windows to find a spreadsheet or a chat message, it takes a measurable physiological toll on you.
Like it actually drains your energy.
It does. It
Yeah.
forces the brain to constantly dump and reload its working memory, which just kills your problem-solving capacity.
Okay, let's unpack this because I think the immediate assumption a lot of people make is that more screens just means a bigger space to make a mess.
Oh, 100%.
Right, like if I just buy a massive second monitor without any sort of plan, I haven't really solved the problem. I've just given myself a larger cutting board to completely clutter up.
Yeah, you just spread the mess out further.
Exactly. So before we even touch a cable or look at hardware specs, how should we be mentally dividing up this new, expanded digital territory?
So the foundational strategy Rumor presents here is this concept of matching intent.
Matching intent. Okay.
Yeah. You cannot simply drag windows wherever there happens to be empty pixels. You have to be totally ruthless about zoning.
Zoning, like creating distinct neighborhoods for different tasks.
Exactly. One display must be rigorously defended for your focused, deep work. So if you are coding or designing or writing a complex report, that primary application lives on your main screen, front and center.
Okay, so the main screen is sacred.
Right. And the second screen is entirely relegated to supporting tools. That is where your team chat, your research tabs, or your reference PDFs live.
Ah, I see. So you are structurally separating the act of creation from the act of communication.
Precisely. And by zoning your workspace this way, you tap into your brain's spatial memory.
Spatial memory. So your brain remembers where things physically are.
Yeah. Your subconscious quickly learns that looking straight ahead means deep focus, and just glancing to the periphery means checking references or, gathering context.
So you stop relying on your short-term memory to remember what was on the previous screen.
Because the reference material is just permanently visible right there on the side.
Okay, but wait. If we're setting up this massive secondary screen, aren't we just building like a permanent billboard for our own distractions?
That is the danger, yes.
Right, because if I'm writing a complex proposal on my main screen, having my Slack channel and my email inbox constantly exploding right next to it, that sounds like a complete nightmare for my focus.
It definitely can be.
Doesn't that shatter the deep work zone we literally just try to protect?
Well, this raises a really important point about how we manage the hierarchy of our notifications. And the source material actually offers a really advanced strategic tactic for exactly this vulnerability.
Oh, really? How do they handle it?
You actually reserve the top corners of your main focus display for critical alerts.
The main display.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the server downtime warnings or VIP client emails, the things that genuinely require you to drop everything immediately.
Okay, that makes sense.
But you push all the low-value notices, the standard emails, the casual team banter, completely over to the side screen.
Oh, I like that. So you are intentionally creating a physical visual boundary that protects your primary field of vision.
Exactly. You are moving the noise out of your direct line of sight.
So you actually have to actively choose to turn your head and look at it rather than having it just, forced upon you while you're trying to work.
Right. You take back control of your attention.
That makes a lot of sense. But the software actually has to be configured to support that physical movement.
Well,
Like, your computer doesn't just automatically know where these screens are sitting on your desk.
no, it definitely doesn't.
The article actually gives a very specific roadmap for setting this up in Windows.
Yeah.
You navigate to Start, then you go to Settings,
Yep. Then System.
right, System, and finally Display. And the crucial maneuver here is hitting that Identify button,
The Identify button is so important.
right, because you have to map the digital layout to the physical one.
Yeah, when you click Identify, these massive numbers pop up. They just overlay onto your physical screens.
Like a giant 1 and a giant 2.
Exactly. And then you have to literally click and drag the monitor icons in that Windows settings menu so they perfectly mirror the physical reality on your desk.
Because the operating system is basically using a Cartesian coordinate plane to track where your mouse is.
Right. If your second monitor is sitting on your left physically, but its digital icon is still over on the right in the settings menu.
The OS thinks the extended space is to your right,
Yeah.
which means you try to drag your mouse left toward the physical monitor, and it just hits an invisible wall.
It's so frustrating.
It is.
Mm.
And then if you drag it right, it magically teleports out of the left side of your other screen. It completely breaks your proprioception.
It shatters the illusion of a single, continuous workspace. You feel like you're fighting the computer.
Absolutely.
Furthermore, Römer highlights the critical necessity of aligning the top edges of those digital display boxes in the settings menu.
Oh, right. Because monitors aren't always the same size.
Exactly. If your two monitors have different resolutions, say you have a 4K monitor sitting right next to an older 1080p monitor, their digital representations in that menu will be vastly different sizes.
One box will be huge and the other will be tiny.
Yeah. And if you don't align the top edges of those boxes perfectly, the operating system doesn't know how to cleanly hand off the mouse cursor from one screen to the other.
So your pointer will literally just snag on an invisible digital wall halfway down the screen.
Right. You'll be moving the mouse and it just gets stuck.
So you align the top so the lateral travel feels like, I don't know, sliding a piece of paper across a flat physical desk.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
And while you are deep in those settings, dialing in the native resolutions and matching the refresh rates is basically mandatory, right?
Oh, absolutely. If one screen is refreshing at, say, 120 hertz, and your secondary screen is chugging along at 60 hertz,
You definitely notice it.
yeah, dragging a window between them creates this horrible stuttering effect. Your eyes have to rapidly readjust to the differing frame rates.
Which causes subtle but cumulative eye strain over an 8-hour shift.
Exactly. And to maximize that crisp resolution once it's set up, the guide really emphasizes utilizing the built-in window snapping feature.
Snapping, like dragging a window to the edge and it fills half the screen.
Yeah. Snapping applications into exact halves or thirds creates a really rigid grid-like layout. Floating, overlapping windows force you to constantly resize and hunt for the edges of applications.
Which is just more of that friction we were talking about.
Right. Snapping eliminates that micro-friction. It lets the operating system handle the geometry so you can just focus on the actual data.
And to take that geometric optimization even further, the guide suggests something I see a lot of developers do. Physically rotating that secondary panel into a portrait orientation.
Yes. You just flip it vertically, like a giant smartphone.
Right. And it makes so much sense when you think about it.
It really does. You have to think about the underlying format of the data that's populating that secondary screen. Long PDF documents, endless lines of code, continuous chat threads.
They are all inherently vertical information flows.
Exactly. When you view them on a horizontal screen, you see a tiny fraction of the content and vast amounts of completely wasted white space on the sides.
But by changing the physical shape of the monitor to match the format of the data, you drastically increase the visible context.
You reduce the need to scroll so much. It transforms that second screen into an incredibly dense, efficient reference tool.
But flipping a monitor 90 degrees entirely changes its center of gravity.
Oh, yeah.
You cannot just prop a heavy vertical screen on a standard cheap plastic stand, which means we really have to talk about the physical architecture holding this all together.
Right, because a brilliant software layout is completely useless if the physical hardware is just a chaotic, unstable mess.
Right. So the physical blueprint requires an upfront audit of your existing hardware. Before you purchase anything, you must check your computer's GPU.
You have to confirm its output
Right.
capabilities.
While most modern graphics processing units handle 2 monitors without breaking a sweat, aiming for 3 or more requires really verifying the hardware's bandwidth.
And port availability.
Yeah. The guide specifically mentions the holy trinity of ports: HDMI, DisplayPort, and USB-C. But it highlights a very specific advantage of DisplayPort that feels like a total game changer for desk aesthetics.
Daisy chaining.
Daisy chaining.
It is brilliant. Daisy chaining fundamentally cleans up the physical infrastructure of your workstation.
Because usually you have to run multiple thick, rigid video cables from your PC all the way up the back of your desk to each individual monitor.
Which looks terrible and is hard to manage. But DisplayPort allows you to transmit packetized data across devices.
So you run one primary DisplayPort cable from your machine to the first monitor.
Right. Then you run a secondary, very short cable from the first monitor directly into the second monitor.
That's amazing. The monitors just pass the signal along sequentially. You've basically eliminated half the cable routing right there.
Exactly.
But, not everyone is running a massive desktop tower with dedicated graphics cards. If you're on a modern laptop, you might only have 2 USB-C ports to your name.
If you're lucky.
Right. So how does this whole multi-monitor philosophy apply to the mobile professional?
Well, for laptops that are restricted by port availability, the text points to the necessity of docking stations.
Like the Dell models.
Yeah, such as the Dell WD-22TB, or even highly portable adapters like the Dell DA310.
Oh, I've seen those little puck-shaped things.
Yeah. These docks utilize high bandwidth protocols to push power, gigabit internet, and multiple high-resolution video streams, all through a single cable connection to your laptop.
Which is huge for people who grab their laptop and run to meetings constantly.
Absolutely. And for the professional who is entirely nomadic, the industry trend is shifting really heavily toward portable 14 to 15.6-inch full HD plug-and-play screens.
The ones that basically look like large tablets.
Yeah, because they utilize USB-C protocols that carry both power and video simultaneously, you can deploy a dual monitor setup in an airport lounge or a coffee shop with 0 external power bricks.
That is incredible. Just one cable and you're good to go.
Yep.
But speaking of plugging things in, if you've ever found yourself crawling under your desk with a flashlight, sweating while trying to jam an HDMI cable upside down into a port by feel...
We have all been there.
Right. You know exactly why the guide insists on this next step. It explicitly advises that you physically map out your ports and then completely power down your PC before you plug any monitors in. Why the emphasis on a cold start? I mean, USB is supposed to be plug and play, right?
It is, but hot plugging a live high-resolution monitor forces the operating system and the GPU to instantly recalculate pixel real estate, refresh frequencies, and power draw all while actively rendering your current desktop.
Oh, wow.
It is the digital equivalent of trying to change the tires on a car while it's driving down the highway.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It really is. This live calculation often scrambles the display allocation, or it causes a digital handshake failure right at the motherboard level.
So the system gets confused and either gives you a black screen or shrinks all your icons to, like, microscopic sizes.
Precisely. Starting from a fully powered-down state forces the motherboard to cleanly pull the ports upon boot up.
It detects the hardware organically.
Yeah, during the startup sequence, it establishes a stable connection and just bypasses a massive amount of troubleshooting before you even reach the login screen.
That makes total sense. And physically mapping the cables beforehand ensures you are purchasing the correct lengths and connector types.
Avoiding the sheer frustration of having a beautiful new monitor and literally no way to feed it data.
It's the classic rule of measure twice, cut
Yeah.
once. And, that physical preparation ties directly into the ergonomics of the workspace, too.
Oh, absolutely.
The article strongly advocates for using sturdy dual arm mounts rather than relying on the factory stands that actually come in the box.
Deploying mechanical monitor arms is a functional necessity at this level. It's not just an aesthetic upgrade.
Because those factory stands consume massive amounts of prime desk real estate right in your primary working zone.
Right. By suspending the monitors on articulating arms, you instantly reclaim that surface area. But more importantly, it grants you the granular control required to fine-tune the height, the tilt, and the depth of both panels.
To support a perfectly neutral spinal posture.
Exactly.
Because if you are craning your neck to look at a screen that's 2 inches too low, or you're twisting your spine to view a side monitor that's angled poorly, your body's going to punish you.
It really will.
This isn't just about making the spreadsheets look bigger. It's about physical endurance, during a demanding work week.
You are actively mitigating cumulative strain injuries. The modern professional operates in a really high-stakes environment where physical fatigue directly translates to cognitive degradation.
If your back hurts, you can't think straight.
Exactly. A setup that forces you into an ergonomic slump drains your stamina long before the workday is actually over.
So, what does this all mean? We have invested capital in screens, we've meticulously routed our cables, we've mapped our coordinate planes and windows, and we've optimized our spinal posture.
You've done the work.
Right. How does this elaborate physical and digital architecture actually translate into tangible business success? How does this keep you, the listener, ahead of the curve in a competitive landscape?
Well, it fundamentally accelerates your execution speed and it elevates the quality of your decision-making.
Okay, how so?
Think about it. Every single time you have to minimize your primary work application to reference a dashboard, or you shuffle through overlapping windows to find an email, you break your visual continuity.
You lose your place.
Yeah. You are forcing your brain to incur what's called a switch cost. You have to clear out your working memory, load the rules for the new application, find the data, hold that data in your mind, switch back to the main app, and reload the original context.
It's exhausting just describing it. You're burning cognitive fuel just managing the interface rather than analyzing the actual data.
Exactly. But when you maintain your dashboards, your performance metrics, and your reference materials permanently visible on a dedicated secondary screen, you eliminate that switch cost entirely.
Because you don't have to switch. You just glance.
Right. You drastically reduce the physical clicks and the mental context switching. You basically transition from processing information sequentially, one thing at a time, to processing information in parallel.
And less time fighting the interface means faster, highly accurate decision-making.
It really does.
And I think that parallel processing power becomes undeniably obvious during presentations. The guide explicitly highlights the massive advantage dual screens provide when you are running a high-stakes meeting or a client pitch over a video conference.
Oh, it is a lifesaver. Sharing a single screen is terrifying.
It is. You are constantly worried that a private desktop notification is going to pop up, or you have to awkwardly break eye contact with the camera to fumble around finding a link in your notes.
Right. But a multi-monitor configuration provides hardware-level segregation during a presentation.
So you dedicate your primary screen entirely to the pristine slide deck or the software demo, which is what the audience sees.
Yeah. And your secondary screen, which is completely hidden from the broadcast, acts as your private command center.
It holds your speaking notes, the upcoming slide previews, and the audience chat box.
You retain total control over the information flow.
So you deliver a smooth, authoritative presentation because you aren't guessing what comes next, and you aren't terrified of a rogue Slack message ruining your professional credibility.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
particularly through the lens of Felix Römer's expertise in fast-paced digital marketing, we see that modern business really relies on frictionless execution.
Frictionless. That's the key word today.
Top performers do not outpace their competition simply by working longer hours. They outpace the competition by systematically identifying and removing micro-frictions from their daily workflow.
Like the switch costs and the bad ergonomics.
Exactly. When your physical mouse movements and your eye travel are optimized, the digital workspace stops being an obstacle course. It transforms into a seamless, highly responsive extension of your analytical thought process.
It's like upgrading from a bicycle with rusty gears to a high-speed rail network.
That's a great analogy.
But, relying so heavily on this high-performance workflow creates a new kind of vulnerability. When you are processing information in parallel at breakneck speed, a sudden hardware glitch isn't just a minor annoyance.
No, it is a catastrophic halt to your momentum.
Exactly. We need a system for rapid troubleshooting to keep you operational. So when a display just goes dark, what is the protocol?
The cardinal rule of troubleshooting display infrastructure is to resist the urge to panic and assume the hardware is dead.
Because it's usually just a software glitch.
Right. Complex digital handshakes fail. It is just the nature of the technology. Always start with the physical layer. Are the cables fully seated in their ports?
Did you accidentally kick it under the desk?
Exactly. Have you accidentally bumped the input selector on the monitor's physical menu? That happens all the time.
True.
Once the physical connections are verified, return to the software layer. Start, settings, system, display, and manually trigger that detect button.
So you're basically forcing the operating system to send out a ping and rebuild the map of connected devices.
Yeah. And if the software ping fails to resolve the issue, you execute a full system reboot.
The classic restart.
It works for a reason. Video connections rely on a protocol called EDID Extended Display Identification Data. When a monitor wakes up, it transmits a packet of data telling the PC its exact resolution and capabilities. If that data packet gets corrupted during a sleep cycle or a screensaver wake-up, the PC fails the handshake and just refuses to send a video signal.
Oh, so it's a communication error.
Right. A hard reboot clears the system memory, resets the ports, and forces the devices to cleanly reintroduce themselves.
So the old turn it off and on again is actually grounded in clearing corrupted memory packets. That's good to know.
It really is.
The article also touches on environmental consistency. If your screens are working, but staring at them gives you a headache, you need to dive into the on-screen display settings on the physical monitors themselves. You have to match the brightness, the contrast, and the color temperatures across both panels.
This is so crucial. If your primary screen is calibrated to a crisp, bright daylight temperature and your secondary screen is uncalibrated, blasting this dim, warm yellow light,
Your pupils are forced to constantly dilate and contract every single time your eyes track back and forth.
yes, that constant mechanical adjustment of the eye muscles leads to profound visual fatigue. Harmonizing the luminance and color profiles across all panels creates a unified visual field.
Which protects your eyes over the long term.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Achieving that perfect harmony isn't a one-time event. You don't just build this setup once, dust your hands off, and consider it finished forever.
No, not at all.
The author emphasizes a real philosophical shift. You must treat your workspace iteratively. Römer actually advises revisiting your layout and your software zoning on a monthly basis.
Because your workspace is a living environment, it has to adapt to the shifting demands of your career.
That makes sense. The projects you're working on change.
Right. The software you use heavily today might be entirely different from the tools you need 6 months from now. As you transition from, say, heads-down coding to taking on more managerial communication and project tracking, the physical orientation of your screens should change too.
You might need to flip that monitor back to horizontal.
Exactly. The way you snap your windows and the hierarchy of your notifications must evolve in tandem. You're continually auditing your workflow, asking yourself where you are experiencing friction this month, and physically adjusting your digital real estate to eliminate it.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with the psychology of spatial memory and intentional zoning. We navigated the specific Cartesian coordinates of Windows settings.
We broke down the mechanics of display data transmission and hardware mounting.
And we unpacked exactly how parallel processing accelerates your decision-making. We've taken that single, messy cutting board and engineered a high-performance professional kitchen.
We really have. And, as we considered the lengths we currently go to, mounting mechanical arms, routing complex cables, and calibrating multiple physical rectangles on our desks just to expand our digital world, it raises a pretty profound question about the trajectory of professional work.
Oh, where are you going with this?
Well, if the ultimate goal is the complete removal of physical friction between us and our digital information, how soon will spatial computing and augmented reality headsets mature to the point where physical monitors become entirely obsolete?
Oh, wow. That is a shift.
Imagine a near future where you simply don a lightweight headset, turning your entire physical office into an infinite monitor-free workspace.
So no screens at all, just your room.
Yeah. You could pin a massive reference spreadsheet to your physical wall, leave a project timeline just hovering above your desk, and dedicate your entire forward field of vision to your primary work.
The ultimate deep work zone.
Right. The core principles of intentional zoning, spatial memory, and managing notification hierarchies that we discussed today will still absolutely apply, but the canvas we work on will be completely limitless.
Now that is a wild thought to leave off on.
Right.
We are mastering the physical screens of today to essentially prepare our brains for the infinite augmented workspaces of tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast. If you want to continually stay ahead of the curve and keep optimizing how you execute your work, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a deep dive.
And we definitely recommend reading the original source.
Yes, I highly encourage you to go read Felix Römer's full article to get all the granular details, the specific hardware recommendations, and the advanced configuration strategies we discussed today. You can find the link right there in the show notes.
It's definitely worth a read.
Until next time, remember, don't try to cook a 5-course meal on a single cutting board. Strategically optimize your space, ruthlessly eliminate friction, and let your digital workflow become a seamless extension of your mind.